I ask him for a big, big miracle. I write it down. I put it in our church's sacred prayer box. And I ask him, okay, there it is, answer my prayer. And then, God he starts crocheting. He's like crocheting. And, I know God likes to weave things together. Like he takes one thing, he braids and he weaves it into another thing. Like emotions, I notice that he doesn't ever, with me at least, he doesn't have one emotion. He likes to weave it into other emotions. Almost like how a piece of music has melodies and harmonies. He's always complementing and enhancing what's already there. Like anger, he never just does straight anger. He mixes it, I notice. He weaves it in with righteousness and justice and he braids it together until it becomes some kind of poetry. So kind of like how if you just add a little bit of spice or a little bit of salt to a dish, it makes all the flavors pop. So I noticed him a weaving, and I just feel like didn't weaving and crocheting go out of style, like in the 1970s? And Sophia crochets. She crochets scarves and hats and things. And I'm watching God sitting in the grass with his crochet needles, and I'm thinking, like, don't they have machines for that? Like sophisticated industrial machines that can do it perfectly? Because these days, if you want a pillowcase with the face of Angelina Jolie all done in sparkles, you literally program it into a computer and the machine, pops it out. And God is doing all of this by hand. And he wasn't doing it evenly. Like it was all crooked and lopsided. And I'm like, you're God. Like you can't crochet straight. And first of all, why are you even crocheting? And second of all, that part right there, it's loose. And then right here, it's too tight. And God's showing me, he's like, you just stretch it like this because it's the yarn is hand spun. So it's uneven. So you just adjust it. You adjust it as you go. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, why don't you just blow on it? It's magically perfect because you're God. Why are you like stretching it as you go? And he looks at me with this deep side eye, squinting. And I'm like, well, you're God, right? So you just touch it, and it's wow, it's special yarn. It's like Spider-Man, pss, 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 right? Like spider webs, weaving the web of life. And God doesn't say anything. He's you know, just. And finally, I'm like, your yarn. You have to know this. It's lumpy. Like it looks like a kid crocheted it. And God says, all of nature is in fact child's play. A few years ago at Stanford University, they started an experiment where they gave a group of MBA students uncooked spaghetti, a marshmallow, and then they told them, build the highest structure possible. So they did the same thing, the same experiment to a group of lawyers, and then they did it with a group of CEOs, and then they ran the experiment dozens of times at different universities around the world. And the people who did the best out of all of them were a bunch of kindergartners. Now, the lawyers had these blueprints, they had plans, they're going to architect the whole thing. The MBA students assigned everyone a specific role so you could specialize in what you do best. And the CEOs analyzed the risks, they discussed their options. But the kindergartners didn't even talk. They just jumped in there, all of them just kind of randomly started putting things together. One kid would see what another kid was doing, sort of kind of improvise on it. Another kid would improvise on what that kid did, and none of them had any preconceived notion of what they were going to build. They just kind of felt it out. They went with the flow of what was already going on, and they trusted each other to kind of make mistakes. And then someone would sort of improvise on top of that person's mistake. And they kind of did it all lopsided. And they won hands down by a landslide. The lawyers did not even come close. And sometimes we don't understand how God is designing our life It looks like he's kind of just doing it all lopsided. And it doesn't even look that sophisticated. He's not using any fancy or expensive technology, which does not make any sense because if you're God and you have access to the whole universe, why aren't you using yarn spun from the body hairs of Christ? Like, why are you using this lumpy Walmart yarn? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I thought when I asked for a miracle, it was going to be profound and beautiful. It was going to be awe-inspiring and breathtaking. And the guy, he just takes out some yarn. It's not Dolce Gabbana, it's basic. And God tells me there are 26 letters in the English alphabet. A, B, C. And I'm like, I know the alphabet, okay? And he's like, you know how many books I've written through people that have won the Pulitzer or the Nobel Prize in Literature? And I only use 26 letters, the same letters that you learned in kindergarten. I didn't use unicorn letters or fairy godmother letters. I just stick with the basics. And it works for me, okay? And I'm like, okay, okay. And he's like, every big miracle that you're looking for, Vicky, just comes down to the basics. Love your life 15 minutes at a time. And I'm like, oh, okay. So you want me to crochet with you? He's like, Vicky, it would help if you had a little patience.